Hello, London. I'm Matt Brown, and you're listening to the Matt Brown Podcast. Today, Vice President of Philanthropy, Rachel Macaulay, is joining us to tell us what's going on over at Ronald McDonald House these days, and she has a message to share with us too. I'll tell you all about it right after this.
Winter is here. Time to discover Bicycle Cafe. Cozy up with our daily soup and sandwich, or unwind with an evening latte and Dutch comfort food. London Bicycle Cafe at the Forks of the Thames. See you soon.
And we're back. Rachel serves as the Vice President of Philanthropy for Ronald McDonald House, Southwestern Ontario. I don't know if you're aware of or have volunteered for or been supported by Ronald McDonald House in the past. If you have, you will know just how impactful the work that they do is. Over the years and from time to time, I've had a few opportunities to volunteer with various groups there, working in the kitchen to prepare meals for families who find themselves living at Ronald McDonald House while their loved one receives treatment at the hospital. In the kitchen, you're kind of behind the scenes. You see the compassion, dignity, and care that parents and families staying there receive on what are likely the lowest, hardest, and scariest days of their lives. The positive impact these staff members and volunteers offer families is immeasurable. It can't really be described. Currently, Rachel is leading a historic capital campaign to double the house's capacity so they won't ever have to turn families away when they need them the most. Rachel has more than 13 years' experience in philanthropy and in communications. She has built her career around the belief that transformational giving changes the giver as much as the recipient. As International Women's Day approaches, Rachel asked to come on the show to share a message that she is championing. Give boldly, gain boldly. It's a call for women and their allies to step into strategic philanthropy and see it not just as an act of generosity, but as a powerful vehicle for personal growth, professional influence, and community impact. And Rachel's here to tell us all about it. So let's go. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the conversation too. You spent over 13 years in the philanthropic world. What drew you to this work? What keeps you passionate about it?
Great question. So I think I'll refuse and resist the temptation to use the worn-out one-liner of "I love helping people." Definitely part of it. But I think as a graduate from the English literature program at Western, I really am a lover of stories and I'm a storyteller. So that's always been at the heart of my career. I was very lucky to start at Pillar Nonprofit Network as part of my public relations postgraduate work. And so I worked under the leadership of Michelle Baldwin, which was just such an honor and a privilege. Talk about an energy and enthusiasm, but also an ability to create a lot of good in the world. And so through Pillar, I got to work with many different charities, which was a really unique experience. And in that, I saw at the heart of nonprofit work really are great stories. It's the great stories that you tell about the donors who make these incredible investments to change the world. And then it's also the people who are benefiting from or building or rebuilding those systems to create a lot of good, both within London, then across the region and around the world. So I think that storytelling piece has really carried me through most of my career. And when I moved from Pillar into Children's Health Foundation, I saw just the courage, the perseverance, and the incredible dynamics between these families. And I don't know what's a better story than seeing these kids push through things that would heal most adults. And now that I'm at Ronald McDonald House, having that through line of the pediatric healthcare, while also having worked in education where these very bright, wonderful young people, they're facing these barriers to what should be the great equalizer, which is education. And so, yeah, I think wanting to help people, of course, but also just seeing the stories and being inspired every day of the best of humanity. It helps you put your head on your pillow at night and feel good and then wake up energized in the morning.
Yeah, I totally get it. It really is about the narrative, and to get to the mind, you really have to move the heart first, I think, and that's part of the human nature. You've got a story to tell today as well. International Women's Day is coming up, and this year the theme is Give to Gain. What does that phrase mean for you?
Well, I think as a fundraiser, we should all be salivating at the, give to gain. That's a pretty obvious and beautiful tie-in to the philanthropic work that's being done across the region. But what I really love about this theme and what I think distinguishes it between some of the previous themes is it's very action oriented. So it's the focus of the giving and then the focus of the gaining. So it gives you kind of a great dichotomy because oftentimes in charity, people feel like they're giving away or giving up something. But what this theme does is recenters it on when you give, you can also expect and should rightly expect to gain something. So whether that's increasing your network or building upon your professional experience, or, just as you said, like the feel good component of it. I see lots of donors at Ronald McDonald House, and when they give towards our programming, they get to meet our families. And I often hear it's a very humbling experience, and it also helps people be very grateful for what they have and what they're able to contribute back into the world. So I think this theme is very action oriented, and it asks all the people who see wrong in the world or see where improvements could be made, like put your money where your mouth is or put your time where you're interested, and let's really come together to action towards a positive difference rather than just leaning on awareness.
So you've been leading with the idea of give boldly and gain boldly. Can you tell us more?
A great question. So I think the boldly part gives it a really important caveat because working in this sphere for so many years, you see some really positive trends, and then you see trends that you don't necessarily believe are providing the level of benefit people want them to. So for me, the boldly has a few different caveats. First and foremost is give boldly. That what I believe that can achieve is about the concentrating of your giving. So there's so many incredible causes. There's so many charities that really do need people to give. But what that can cause is for people to spread their giving very thin because they don't want to say no. So rather than giving boldly and giving of your time, treasure, and talents in a significant way, you're spreading it across too many causes, and that has consequences both for the charity that you're trying to invest in, but also the giver, because you don't necessarily get to cultivate that relationship or get those gains in the way that you could if you directed and concentrated your time and your treasure to maybe one or two specific charities. So I think the giving boldly is making sure you're giving in accordance with the need of the charity, but then also making sure that you're not spreading yourself too thin. And then in terms of women specifically, women are wonderful givers. They give with a lot of heart, they give with a lot of strategy, and now more than ever they're influencing where the giving is taking place. But what I think is interesting about women is they almost hesitate to celebrate when they give. They like to give quietly, and quiet giving is very admirable, but I would love to see more women when they give to give loudly and proudly, not just because I want to celebrate them and I think they should be recognized for these transformative investments, but it's also when you are recognized for giving, you inspire your peer groups to give. You inspire other people to give, and that ripple of goodness that you've created then can really gain a lot of momentum, and then maybe it will grow into a tidal wave. So kind of in the famous words of Beyonce, if you like it, put a name on it. Don't hesitate to celebrate yourself in that way.
Before I was a teacher, I worked as a fund development officer and then the director of development for the YMCA here in London. And one of the things that we talked about even 25 years ago was that it doesn't have to be about altruism. Altruism is great, but it can also be about being held accountable as an organization that's receiving a donation, demonstrating the impact that's made through that contribution. And we found that could really help move the person giving closer to the organization. Do you see that too?
Yeah, I think there needs to be a lot of clarity, transparency, and accountability on both sides. So as an organization, you are responsible for, telling that great story back to the donor and tying it into tangible outcomes of the benefits that you've created. Like the warm fuzzies, of course, are such an integral part of giving. And I mean, I work for a charity with adorable kids and beautiful families all the time. So we definitely benefit from that storytelling. But people who are making especially significant and strategic investments, when they're tied into like a CSR component, they need to be able to go back to their stakeholders and show the difference that was made, whether that's in the number of people helped or, the mental health outcomes or the psychosocial outcomes. And so that requires the donor being upfront about what they want to gain from that relationship. It requires the fundraiser, the fundraising team to be upfront and transparent about what they can offer in terms of impact reporting and outcomes. And if you have a good relationship with a charity and you're engaged in a real two-way conversation, it is much more likely that you can extend beyond just that altruistic feel good and have a great dialogue that then allows you to communicate those benefits outward. So, that's one of the many important reasons why don't spread yourself too thin over many organizations. Really be upfront and honest about the philanthropic partnership you want to have and then build towards it over time.
Okay, well, let's talk specifically about Ronald McDonald House. During the opening of the program, I described my perspective about why Ronald McDonald House is important for families. And you're leading a major capital campaign right now. What's driving the urgency? What are the goals? Where do things stand with the campaign?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as you rightly identified in the intro, Ronald McDonald House is a place where families with ill and injured children can stay so that they're very close to the hospital. So Ronald McDonald House, Southwestern Ontario, has 3 program sites, and one of them is a 40-bedroom house that's about 160 steps from Children's Hospital at London Health Sciences Centre. So what that safe space allows is for families, they have access to home cooked meals every night. They are just steps away from their children's hospital bed. We all offer all kinds of wraparound family-centered care therapies and all that. But really for families, and the simplest way to put it is that we take care of the caregiver so that they can show up for their kids. And when parents are able to, or guardians are able to be present for that healthcare journey, the healthcare journey is typically shorter. It's better. The mental, physical, and psychosocial outcomes are enhanced, not only for that pediatric patient, but for their siblings, for the parents, and their extended family members. So, having a present caregiver isn't a nice to have. It's critically necessary to determine whether or not that kid will have their best possible health outcomes. So what's happening right now is we are caring for, well over 1,000 or thousands of families every year. But for every night we are saying yes to a family to stay at Ronald McDonald House, we are saying no to a family.
Oh my
So
gosh, I
for
wondered about that.
so for 1,076 nights last year alone, we turned away families. That's in 2024 it was about 500 families we said no to, and in 2025 it was a similar number. And there's no viable alternative to a Ronald McDonald House. So when we say no to families, they face kind of a number of very difficult options. One is they separate. So a caregiver will stay in the hospital and the rest of the family travels back home, an average of 280 kilometers, but up to and further than Thunder Bay.
Yeah, folks might not realize that the Children's Hospital here in London services Southwestern Ontario, but also much of Northern Ontario as well.
Yeah, about 2.4 million people in our catchment area for Children's Hospital. And so, the family can fragment or they can face a long-term hospital stay, which is not accessible for families of any socioeconomic bracket. They estimate that a family who cannot access a Ronald McDonald House will spend about $15,000 to $20,000 a month for a
Wow.
family of 4. So there's no way to prepare for something like that. And, the one thing that all of our families have in common is no one expects to stay at a Ronald McDonald House. So we want to build towards a future where no family is turned away. So what we're going to do in London is we're going to double in size from 40 to 80 bedrooms so we can serve twice as many families and address the fact that every night we have about 10 to 15 families on our wait list. And, when you think a family is 2 people up to 5 or 6 people, that's more like 2,000 or 2,500 vulnerable individuals. It's not just those 500.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm sure that people listening to this episode are thinking that's really tough to
Mhm.
hear. It must be hard for staff and for volunteers to communicate that to families. And it must be impossibly hard for families to hear that, sorry, there's no room and we're going to have to come up with a different plan. So the capital campaign, I can see why it's so necessary. Doubling in size is very ambitious. Where are you in the campaign right now? How's it going?
So we've raised about 18 million and change so far. So we're having some great momentum with our fundraising campaign, but our final philanthropic goal is in and around $40 million. So we still have a long way to go. And what's most important is that we need to have about 80% of our capital funding realized before we can get a shovel in the ground. What I'm working towards is having that shovel in the ground before the end of 2026. But in order to do that, we're really going to need our region's most esteemed philanthropists to really step up and certainly give boldly so we can gain the bold and beautiful future of a safe and loving place for every family who needs to access life-saving care for their kids.
Absolutely. You told me as we were preparing for this conversation that we've got International Women's Day coming up on March 8th, and that research shows that women are really driving an increasing share of the decisions about
Mm-hmm.
where their donations are going to go. And I just wonder if you could talk about that for a minute. What kind of trends are you seeing and why should this matter?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. It's one that I'm very interested in because, as a fundraiser and as someone in philanthropy, you want your donors to be highly engaged and you want them to participate in an experience that brings them as much joy as they're bringing to those families that they're donating towards. So, some of the trends around women's giving is with this great transfer of wealth we're having, one of the largest, if not the largest ever, a very large portion of that wealth is being transferred to women. And so, where maybe financial advisors would have previously typically engaged the male in a partnership, more and more women are directing where charitable funds are going. So it's very important as both a fundraiser, as an advisor, as anyone who's trying to engage, whether it's a couple or a single woman or a family in philanthropy, you need to be involving all of the partners and making sure that you're understanding who is directing that giving and not just assuming, it's the name on the building, as I was joking before. Something that's really interesting with women's giving, which I think aligns beautifully with that giving boldly, is women love to engage in networking philanthropy. So they will come together in a giving pool or a giving circle, and that helps them to maximize their impact. I think group giving is an extremely powerful way to approach philanthropy, especially when people want to be able to make a large impact, but they don't necessarily have the means to make that leadership gift all on their own. When you bring together various people, then you see that giving pick up quite quickly. So I love that women are interested in and leading those types of initiatives. And then, kind of a last trend or an important trend is that women don't tend to just make a donation. They do tend to engage with the three T's. So time, treasure, and talents. So more and more we're seeing women take up leadership positions on things like boards or, I run a campaign cabinet. That's 10 incredible individuals who are like the fundraising arm of Ronald McDonald House. And so I empower women to, see themselves in those roles and seize upon those roles because they can contribute fundamentally beyond their funds. And we definitely want to see more and more of that as, within this year and for all those to come.
It's really interesting that you mentioned the transfer of wealth that's occurring right now. And I'm sure what you're referring to is that as our baby boomer population, those born from 1945 to 1965, age, then inheritance is occurring at a greater rate. And also during that time economically, that cohort did very well financially. Is that the transfer of funds that you're speaking about?
Yes, and that transfer of funds is both in terms of like liquidated assets, but it's also a lot in and around real estate. And one of the other trends I should have talked about, which is not specific to women, but it's all around strategic giving, which again is necessary for bold giving, is that people are really getting smart in terms of how they are leveraging in-kind donations of shares. And there are incredible tax relief benefits to give in that way. So when you are experiencing a transfer of wealth, and you are trying to, mitigate things like capital gains tax, you can work with your financial advisor and make a significant impact with your charitable giving while also reducing those high fees, taxes, etc., that you might experience, especially when you're dealing with an estate. So, those are some of the trends, and those help with that transfer of wealth to, do a lot of good with it while also gaining good for yourself.
For sure. Back at the turn of the century, when I was involved in fundraising, we talked an awful lot about donor sophistication and how important it was to recognize that this trend was going to occur and that organizations would be held at a much higher level of accountability. And I think what I'm hearing from you is that that trend line continues and folks are getting very sophisticated. They have high expectations, and it's a lot more complicated maybe than writing a check to an annual giving campaign. I think probably people are wondering how they might be able to get involved. And I think that just before we finish our conversation, we should chat about that.
Oh, great. Okay, so Ronald McDonald House is so unique in that we are able to show our donors their impact live in living color. So first and foremost, if our Ronald McDonald House mission resonates with you, if you share in our belief that every child should have the love, company, and care of their parents and guardians when they're receiving medical treatment, then I would love to personally take you on a tour of Ronald McDonald House. If you can give me an hour of your time, I can show you the entire house, definitely introduce you to some of our patient families, and then see if our vision resonates with you. From there, a great activity for either individuals, families, or our corporate partners is to come and participate in something we call Meals from the Heart. So you bring together a group of 8 to 10 members. We see this with a lot of our teams across London, the surrounding area. You make the meals for the families, you get to serve the families, and then you sit with them. So you get to hear all about their experiences. It is a wonderful team building engagement, but it also, again, lets you have that hands-on philanthropy. And then you have a great opportunity. It's about a 3.5 hour time commitment. And throughout that time, if you are not moved to participate in our mission, I don't think we could move a mountain with anything else. So I think, start with a tour, come in, make some meals for our families, see what we're all about. And, if you want to take up this really ambitious challenge with myself and our cabinet members and our families, we would definitely love to and need to have you on board.
Yeah, I can tell you as a person with firsthand experience working in the kitchen, it is a powerful experience and very emotional as well. You can see firsthand and feel directly why the work that Ronald McDonald House, why the work that they do is just so important. We've only got a couple of minutes left, and I want to just leave you with the last word. What story do you want to tell before we say goodbye today?
I would really like to just come back to the fact that people can make a major difference. As I started with at the beginning of this conversation, I know as well as anybody else, the world is in a really complicated place. There are so many systemic, complicated issues that it can be or feel easier to kind of turn away and focus on, your inner circle or your kind of microcosm of your life. But whether it is your time or it is a donation, people really need us all to step up. They need us to give boldly. They need us to, invest in these causes. And with one right here in London, Ontario, that it's not a complicated issue. Ronald McDonald House, this is a bricks and mortar issue. This is a capacity issue. When we build this new house, 1,000 additional families are going to have a safe and loving place to stay. It's not a big complex service or program issue. We just need more space. And so I think that's what's so moving about this campaign is we don't have to shift the tides. We just need to create some more square footage. So if you want to see an immediate and immense impact, I think this is the perfect opportunity for people to do that. And so I'm just so honored and excited to be leading this campaign. And I can't wait for the day when we cut the ribbon on that beautiful new building. And I get to thank all the people who made it possible. and just know for generations to come that London and Southwestern Ontario stood up and stood by these families to make sure that they never had to walk another impossible day alone.
I can't think of a better place to leave it than that. Rachel, thanks for coming on the podcast. And thanks to you, the staff and the volunteers for the work that you're doing over at Ronald McDonald House every single day.
Well, thank you so much for creating this opportunity to be here. And it's just great to see you again. And I really appreciate you giving us this platform. Even if it touches one person who the mission resonates with, that will make a world of difference for our families. So thank you so much.
And we'll be back to close out the show right after this.
Winter's here. It's time to discover the Bicycle Cafe. Cozy up with our daily soup and sandwich, or unwind with an evening latte and Dutch comfort food. London Bicycle Cafe at the Forks of the Thames. See you soon.
Well, that's the show. I hope you know a little bit more about Ronald McDonald House, Rachel Macaulay, and the message that she has for women and their allies as International Women's Day approaches. Many thanks to Rachel for joining us, and as always, thank you for listening. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This show is for you. In fact, we couldn't do it without you. If you like what you're hearing, please share it with your colleagues, friends, and families. You can also subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Sometimes, at the end of an episode, I've asked you to consider supporting the show. And today, I'm going to ask you to consider Rachel's message and visit Ronald McDonald House, SWO.ca, to make a donation there. And that's the show. I'm Matt Brown, and you've been listening to the Matt Brown Podcast. It's the show about all things local and maybe some other stuff too. Thanks for listening. Bye for now, and talk to you again soon, London.